When I walked away from boxing, I walked away with some unfinished business.
I love boxing movies, so needless to say, I was very excited to see Creed 3. I've been a big fan of the franchise so far, so this one had a lot to live up to. I rewatched the first two right before going to see this one, and having refreshed my memory, I don't think it was as good as either of those are. That's not to say Creed 3 is a bad movie in any way, that's mostly just because I enjoyed the others so much. I'm going to start with talking about the story without spoilers, then move on to other aspects of the movie. The core premise is that Adonis had a friend when he was younger named Damien that went to prison, and he thinks he should be living the life that Adonis is. This idea was intriguing to me and was the main reason I was so excited about seeing the movie. I think they did a really good job of telling the story and making it feel impactful. The story starts off pretty quickly and doesn't waste much time on anything, but more importantly, they made Damien seem like a real villain in a different way from what these movies typically do. Previously in the other movies, the boxer that the whole movie is building up to is just a strong challenger that needs to be beaten for Adonis to keep his title, pride, or whatever else he's fighting for. Those characters weren't really developed beyond their presence in the ring, but Damien actually is. He's given a reasonably detailed background for a movie in this genre, and he turns into a character I actually ended up rooting against because he seems evil and not just because I like the main character. This is pretty rare for boxing movies, and it was a welcome addition for me. As much as I love this style of movie and the action in them, they don't usually have much of a character arc for anyone other than the main character. While talking about characters, I of course have to mention the cast. Everyone that is usually around did great as they have in the past two movies, but the real standouts are Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors. Michael B. Jordan did a great job once again, and this time around he played Adonis as a much more mature and reasonable character. It was interesting to see him this way because he had accomplished so much, had a family, and didn't have much to complain about in his life. In the other movies he had a lot to prove, so he was pretty much only focused on himself, but this time he wasn't, and I really enjoyed that. This character development was one of my favorite parts of the movie and gave a good framework for the typical happy life being disrupted storyline they were going for. On the other hand, Jonathan Majors played pretty much the exact opposite character. With this being the second movie I've seen of his in the past month, I've definitely grown fond of him as a villain, and in Creed he seemed to have the perfect attitude as Damien. His performance really seemed like a person that just got out of prison and is extremely bitter about the past, and it made it feel like there was actually a reason for the plot to progress. The background he was given did a great job of explaining why he felt abandoned while also giving him room to grow for better or for worse. I have to mention though, whether it was a story point or not, he didn't seem like he was very good at boxing. I'm not sure if this was intentional, but he didn't seem like he'd stand much of a chance against Creed, and this led to a somewhat underwhelming main story progression after about halfway through the movie. That leads me into one of my complaints about the movie, which was the boxing, as ridiculous as it sounds. It wasn't the entire movie though, it was really just the last fight, and I can't quite put my finger on the entire reason why I thought it was subpar compared to the other movies, but it definitely was. Part of it at least was that I've become accustomed to seeing intense action with a lot of quick dodges and counters during the fight. To be honest, the fight didn't have much working in its favor. The punches felt weak, the fighter's movement seemed slower than normal, and it just felt less suspenseful overall. There wasn't even a meaningful back and forth, which was disappointing because nothing during the fight really felt earned. They also tried something in an attempt to be more cinematic during the last fight, and I absolutely hated it, but I'm not going to explain exactly what it was because that might be a spoiler to some people. The majority of the other fights were really satisfying though, and they felt like normal Creed movie quality boxing. One thing that I think pretty much everyone will be disappointed with is that Rocky isn't in the movie at all. He doesn't even show up once, which took me completely by surprise as he's been such an integral part of the Creed movies. I missed the scenes of Adonis talking to Rocky about the upcoming fights and his pep talks in between rounds that got him hyped up and ready. I really think the movie suffered from his absence, and it would have been a lot better had he been in it. Surprisingly, even with an anticlimactic ending, I think the movie was really good. The story felt developed and worth watching, everything else in the movie felt earned other than the very end, and it was nice to see a new boxing villain that actually had a personality. I'd definitely say to check it out if you're a fan of the Creed franchise. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date with my videos. I'll see you next time.